Today I want to talk about how you can double your wholesale fee just by using this one strategy that no one really talks about. So this is what hedge fund use, this is what the big guys use. It's called retrading, and what you do is for a normal transaction, let's say this is your normal transaction, you contract the home here, and then this is your inspection period. This is usually like 7 days long. Now this is a time where your EMDs are vulnerable, and this is a time where you actually go and see the property and actually do what's called an inspection. That's why it's called an inspection period. Sometimes it's called a due diligence period, an options period. But this is the time for the buyer to figure out, hey, is this home really what it is as listed? Is this home really right for me? This is you doing your due diligence. This is part of the process. Now, you would order an inspection report from an inspection company like Inspectify, or you would have your buyer act as like a contractor or an inspector or just a buyer and visit the property. I would always recommend to just have your buyer frame themselves as a contractor so their seller or realtor doesn't try to go around your back. They visit the property probably within 4 days. So like you send out the deal and they go see it, and usually around here is when you'll get someone who can put down an non-refundable EMD. Non-refundable is usually gonna be $5,000. Now, if the property's lower than, or the property's around 100K in purchase price, your buyer's probably gonna only pay like 3K non-refundable. If the property's around 300K, then they're likely gonna be paying around 5,000 non-refundable. And then if the property's over like $1 million, you can go anywhere between like 10K and 20K non-refundable. Now, the really important thing is this right here, the last day of inspection. So on the last day, the 7th day, is the most vulnerable point in this entire transaction, okay? This is a point where the buyer can cancel, the seller can back out, anything can happen at this point. Like, everyone is on the edge of their seats on this last day. Now, the reason why it's so important is because me as a buyer, I can cancel. And since they're so deep into this transaction, this is like a point where they don't know if it's gonna for sure close. Like right now, it's 50-50. Because one, you have no risk because your EMD is refundable. So they know that if you back out, you're still getting your EMD back and you have nothing to lose. Now here's where the retrade comes in. Now on the last day of inspection, here's what the hedge funds do. Let's say your original offer was $320 to contract the home, okay? And let's say your buyer offered you $330. You're still gonna make $10,000 on it, right? Here's how to double that. Before you do a retrade, now a retrade is slightly risky, but you're gonna double your profits. So like, here's what you do. You make sure the offer from your buyer is one, you have a non-refundable EMD on it. So meaning their offer is pretty much locked in. If they back out, you get whatever the EMD amount was from your buyer. So like locked down for sure, a 5K non-refundable earnest money deposit. The second thing you want is an inspection report, some sort of like solidified report of like, hey, these are the items that were not mentioned initially when I contracted the home, and this is what we found during inspection. Usually it could be a contractor bid, it could be an inspection report from an inspection company, it could even be a text message from your buyer. It just has to be something where it shows like, hey, the roof needs to be repaired, that wasn't talked about. The fence needs to be repaired. The floor had holes in it. The roof had leakage in the roof. Now, I feel like this is a cherry on top. You don't have to actually have a full in-depth report, but it definitely provides a lot more credibility in your retrade. So here's what you do. Once you have all these items, wait for the last day. So you wait for the 7th day, and then you go to the seller or the agent, and you'd be like, hey, Mr. Seller or agent, I need this at 3/11/2/30. Now here are the reasons why it's not just a flat number like this. When you present a number like this, psychologically, it makes the other party feel like you've actually worked on your number, and it makes them feel like you've definitely pulled strings on your number and you've actually like, this is the highest you can go. That's why you have different digits here, and you just give them to this, and then you also, so this is usually sent in like an email. You would attach like the items that needed to be repaired. It's like, hey, we didn't account for this. It was minus 5,000 and like so and so and so and so and blah blah blah. This is my final offer. This is the best I can do. It's so important to do this on the last day. If you do this on the first day, they don't have risk because they could just back out and find a different buyer. Here's the thought process for them. They have to cancel the contract so that they deal with all that, and then they have to find a new buyer and restart this entire process over and risk them also doing the same thing to them. Because here's what happens. When you list out items like this, Like, hey, the roof was, blah, 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 blah. As a realtor, their fiduciary duty is to also disclose that to the new buyer. So they know for a fact that if they back out, they won't have a chance to probably get a higher offer. They know the market nowadays can change, upside down in a matter of 30 days. We've seen it happen before. This is where the magic happens. This is where you double your profits. So when you do that, it's almost a 90% chance, 99% chance that they either counter or they accept. Now, if they counter, they might counter at 315, and that's okay because you would have made money anyways without the retrade. You would have made $10,000 anyways. But since you did that, since you put in the little extra work to try and retrade, you made yourself an extra $5,000. Maybe they accepted your original offer or your final offer. You would literally doubled your profits just by doing this simple thing, just by doing this little extra work. Again, just to recap, you wanna make sure, one, you have a solid offer from your buyer because you wanna make sure you have something to fall back on and something to actually put on the table. Make sure 5K, EMD, 10K, whatever the EMD amount is refundable, and make sure that EMD is more than the EMD you put to the seller. So let's say your EMD to the seller was 2K. Your buyer should always be more at 5K. So even if the deal doesn't go through, the deal falls through and they cancel, you still make 3K. Obviously, this is not an ideal situation, but you still make 3K from the buyer's EMD. This is the strategy. This is how you double your profits, or at least make an extra 5, 10, 15,000. I had a time where there was this deal in Tampa and I literally made an extra $10,000 just by doing this simple exact framework. Non-refundable EMD, and then with a cherry on top, if you would like, definitely provide an inspection report. It's worth the extra $100 to make back $5,000 extra. That is the strategy.